Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our continued coverage of World Cup 2021. We've got the men's quarterfinal today because actually the ladies have the day off. All the semifinalists get an extra day to prepare for their important matchups. So today we've just got 4 games of chess. I'm going to show you all 4 of them. I have nothing else to say. That's the shortest intro that I can possibly give you. You're amazing though if you clicked on this video. All right, so we're going to begin, obviously, with Magnus Carlsen, Etienne Bacrot. Etienne is the last Frenchman remaining after yesterday. Sergei Karyakin knocked out Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Also, there might be echo. I'm already sensing it. Brand new place. We'll fill it up. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6. And we have Ruy Lopez. We've seen this many, many times. And it's curious always, what Magnus is going to bring to the table because he just played a match that had a ton of Spanish in it. Well, it had a Norwegian and a Russian and also a Spanish. Interesting threesome. But, it's curious, like Bacrot, what is he going to prepare? And Bacrot plays this variation with A4. Yesterday we've seen D3, we've seen C3, D4 with H3. It's the classical way of playing the Spanish. The commitment of these 2 pawns is always the question, but Bacrot plays A4. This is a very modern way of playing the Spanish. And then White plays like this, preventing, utilizing a unique move order to prevent the knight from coming to A5, which is one of the main ideas in the Spanish. And here there's a couple of moves for Black, and Magnus chooses this move, which is the second most popular in the position, and doesn't really have a huge amount of top-level games, and it's the move Queen D7. This is a very flexible move. There are many, many ways that the game can continue here. But namely, like knight d8 actually could even be an idea to maybe transfer the knight. And the thing is that White is left with one move to develop this knight, and that move is knight to c3. And Bacrot plays it, and it's the critical move. And here White scores something like 70%, not at the highest level, but overall. But the thing is that knight c3 allows this knight a5. But essentially, White sort of argues, why is your queen on d7? I mean, this knight is now unguarded. Normally, it would have a guard, so I might have moves like knight e2. And I can utilize the attack on the knight to win a tempo and transfer my knight over here. We know that White likes to create kingside attack. So the knight just goes back, the knight transfers. And here, Magnus plays a move. Surely this is preparation. If not, then, well, he's the GOAT for a reason. He plays the move d5. Now that doesn't look like anything super exciting. Anybody can push a pawn 1 square, even you. Well, you can't push this pawn, but, d5, and on its own, it doesn't look like a crazy move. But here's the thing: the pawn on e5 is just straight up hanging. It's completely under attack. Now, if you know anything about the Spanish, or whether you don't know anything about the Spanish, in many Spanish lines for White, when this rook comes to e5 and you win a pawn, like in the Marshall, Black sets up the shooters. The bishop on b7, the bishop on f6. This is just very bad. By bad, I mean it's very dangerous. It's not like losing, it's just very dangerous for White. Crisscross applesauce bishops, Marshall compensation. And for that reason, Bacrot tries to play it safe with the move c3. After rook d8, Magnus is just incessantly giving this pawn up. He's like, dude, I don't want it. Just take it. So he does. Knight e5, rook e5, and bishop d6. Again, to the untrained eye, it looks like you are just giving away 2 pieces for the rook, but you are not, because bishop g3 would immediately pick up that bishop on d5. So the rook goes back, and now Magnus trades like this. So Magnus has the bishop pair, Marshall compensation, and he has open lines, right? He's got the open lines, g2 a little bit under pressure. It's really hard to guard d3, and by really hard, I mean it's impossible to guard it, so you just have to play knight e4. But taking d3 is really stupid, because you're going to lose c5 in all lines. So here, you're going to lose c5, and actually you're going to lose more than c5. You're going to lose the game. So queen c7. But the long-term pressure on d3 is what is going to make Black's position really good. And also, Black always has moves like c4, which add more pressure and kill this bishop. Maybe you don't want to allow d4, but it's there. Maybe b4, right? So you have more space, you have open lines. And Bacrot tries to play aggressively with f4, kicking him back and saying, okay, well, I'm up a pawn, I gotta prove my superiority. And Magnus just slow plays this. He plays queen c6. Now, anywhere you move this knight, it's mate in 1. Okay? So queen comes back to h3, and now Magnus does, in fact, play the move that GothamChess suggested, because GothamChess is a very, very, very good chess player. I sound like Dobby from Harry Potter. Gotham is a good chess player. Okay, I'm sorry. d4. Here's the problem. Now this knight is the last resort, and it ain't good. This is bad. You would think you can go knight f2. I will come in here with the queen. This is just no bueno. Not good. And so for that reason, Bacro plays d5. And his idea of d5 must have been that, he would force the queen to be under attack. Now, what's funny is that here Magnus can win with queen b6 check. King moves anywhere, and you take on d5, and black is just completely winning. For example, knight g5 attacks the pawn, mate, so h6. You have queen f5, hitting this and this, and here you have hg5, queen d5, and you just destroy all the pawns. I'm not sure what Magnus missed with queen b6. He decided to play queen d5 and call the bluff and win this game in style by sacrificing his queen. So now Magnus has sacrificed the queen. Bacro plays this move because otherwise rook e2 was coming, and that's very, very bad. And so we get this position where the queen is attacked, so the queen needs to move or get defended. Bishop f5 is another very fancy way of defending your bishop because you would have this, the rook would come in and the game is over. So queen d5, and the bishop takes the pawn on b2. So the count is rook, bishop, 2 pawns, which together is 10 points, versus the queen. The queen is 9. So still, Bacro has this awful bishop over here, which is not doing anything. Magnus has all the play in the world. So king g2, bishop d7, and rook d8. Queen c5, bishop f6. Magnus trying to figure it out. So now they've both made move 40. That's move 40, that's move 40. They get the extra time, as they do in classical chess. Bishop back to b1, and g6. g6 just disallows the bishop any sort of activity, makes sure that the king can never get mated. And when you play against the queen, you need to coordinate all of your pieces really well. So that might mean something like bishop on e6, rook on b8, king on g7. Make sure everything is protected. Negate the movement of your opponent's pieces. You don't want your opponent to ever move forward with the pawns. And you see exactly that's what Bacro's trying to do. Bishop takes g4. This is Magnus calling his bluff again, and c3. c3, king g7, guards the bishop, guards the pawn. This is really, really nice. And f5, just very calmly g5. Now that you will put your king on g7. The white queen just will never be able to infiltrate. The bishop on b1 will never be able to infiltrate. And Bacro resigned here. Wow. Magnus could have played this, like I said. He could have, all the way back here, when he had this opportunity to play queen b6 and just take the pawn, he decided not to go for that and instead decided to sack his queen, because that is obviously the fancy way of winning the game. And he didn't take on d5 here because after king e1, he doesn't get the transformation of position that he wants. If you notice, he actually waited for rook e5 to bait the king to be opposite the rook, to take on c3, to play bishop back to c8. A couple of very, very unique tempo-winning moves. Look at that, while this bishop just hangs out. Danger levels on the queen, danger levels on the king, and then the queen. Magnus has seen enough Gotham chess content. He knows how to implement danger levels the right way. And he ends up winning the game in style versus Etienne Bacro, who now has to win tomorrow with black. Good luck. So, next 2 games. 3 games. Tabatabai versus Fedoseev. Tabatabai is by far the lowest rated player remaining. He's just barely over 2600 classical, but he has had an unbelievable run. So let's see what the second highest rated player from Iran, I believe he's second highest. Parham's number 1 is Gayam Magami. I don't know. I think Tabatabai is up there. So we have a queen's gambit decline. Bishop e7. Slightly more accurate than playing knight f6 because of the exchange variation, but don't really worry about it. Nothing particularly exciting. Bishop f5 is an interesting way to play. Bishop f5 actually induces white to play h4, g4. Believe it or not, that's actually critical, but Tabatabai doesn't quite do that. He plays h4 because black plays g6. And now, the question of h4 is, are you supposed to play h5? If you do, you really weaken this square, and actually he doesn't, and so Tabatabai himself just plays the move h5, and then goes for this. And let me just tell you something. Optically speaking, this looks incredible for white. Black cannot castle short anymore. White has the open h-file completely. Optically, this looks absolutely beautiful. And he brings the knight back, and he brought it back because he maybe wants to expand this way, and also because this bishop is just not stuck anymore. For example, g5, the bishop just goes back. Whereas, if you play a move like queen c2, then g5 comes and oopsies. You say, that's not an oopsie, I have this move. Yeah, but why are you just giving up the dark squared bishop? For what? It's like, okay, you go here. Okay, oh, sorry, that's a mouse slip. Then rook takes g3. So that's also bad. So you gotta go knight e2. You gotta make room, always taking a look at your opponent's resources. And this trade is actually very different. This trade, you still have pressure on e6 and f4. Now, should he have done it after knight h5? No. Actually, apparently the machine just says, bring the bishop back. Why would you give him the bishop? And then play queen c2, and then play knight f4, and then long castle. Computer here gives +1 for white, which is insane. That's a massive advantage. But he decided to give him the bishop and then play long castle. And I can't blame the guy. I mean, look at black's position. This is so stupid looking. But black is completely solid. As the computer would have it, black has just enough sufficient activity and decides to also castle queenside. So you're never going to really put black under too much pressure. Now you'll notice that Tabatabai has 6 pawns on dark squares after trading off a dark squared bishop. That is very good play. And he also, optically speaking, looks like he has everything that you're supposed to have. It looks like he has played everything correctly up until this moment. Taking space, he's going to try to put his knight on c5, line up the pawn, queen, maybe b5, and yet it's minus 0.69 for black. What? How did... Well, here's why. This bishop kicked out this rook from controlling the h-file. Black also has the bishop pair, which inherently the computer give a bonus to. Also, black has potentially a better pawn structure, because black has 4 versus a split 2 and 1. You know, as the game opens up, black will have control of the important squares in the center of the board. So queen e7, a4. But that doesn't stop Tabatabai from trying. Goes back and brings his knight over here. Looks like everything is just primed and ready to go. a5, b5, a6. Let's go, let's go, let's go. But black is in time with counterplay. So that's the problem with relinquishing control. You see, black jumps in with the knight on c4. Again, untrained eye. You think bishop c4, d c4, and queen c4. I'm just the pawn up. It's not so simple. I can play a move like f5. I can bring my second rook to the h-file. I have enough counterplay, but it's definitely it's the way white should play if white wants to win. Take the pawn, make it bishops versus knights, and just create chaos. Black is going to try to destroy you over here. You're going to try to attack on this side. Tabatabai doesn't go for that. He plays e4. He blows the center up. And the thing is about blowing up the center is that we might have a massive sequence of trades. Bishop c5, bc5, bishop e4, knight e4, and a draw was agreed. What? That means that Tabatabai played knight takes e4 and offered a draw. Now, you say, why do you offer a draw? Pawn takes e4, bishop c4. What am I not seeing? Well, you're not seeing the fact that f5 was the idea. And you can't move your knight because you would lose this. And now if bishop takes c4, well, then I just take. Your knight's still not going anywhere. For example, queen f3, fe4, rook e4, and we have queen and 2 rooks and 5 pawns each. So they could have played this, but I think they were both so afraid that they might lose this game. They actually both were very happy to just pull the plug on the game right here after move 32, which is interesting. Interesting decision. I don't know who will live to regret it, but tomorrow Fidaseyev has a chance to knock out Tabatabai when he has the white pieces, and Tabatabai has a chance to knock out Fidaseyev with the black pieces, although that's more of a tall task. Now, third game of the day. Vidit Gujarati versus Jan Krzysztof Duda, number 2 Indian player, number 1 Polish player, and Srinath Narayanan. That is how you... Wait. I'm going to go confirm that. Srinath Narayanan. Yes, that's what I said, right? There's also... Isn't there another grandmaster, Narayanan? Okay, I'm happy. I think I pronounced it right. I'm not going to edit this, so if I didn't pronounce it right, please don't be mad. I try to do my best to pronounce everyone's name correctly. Knight f3, castles, c6. Now, anyway, what I was going to say about Srinath is very happy because he just made a course on the Catalan, and here it is getting played. Now, kind of shocking, Duda chooses not bishop b4 and bishop back, what Yesipenko played against Magnus, doesn't choose to take on c4, which is ultra critical. He just plays c6. And c6 is completely fine. This ultimately leads to something known as a closed Catalan, with queen c2, rook d1 stabilizing the center pawns. But you know what always amazes me about these positions is how depressing they are with black. Like, if I'm gonna have a guy play the Catalan against me, or a girl, I'm going to take on c4, and I'm gonna play bishop b4, bishop e7. Like, I'm not gonna let you have that pawn back. But, you know, anyway, players finish their development. Here there is a threatening of a repetition. If Vidit wants to play bishop f4 and repeat moves, he, of course, does not want to, and he plays knight c6 and forces this exchange. Now, if you just look at this position optically, you go, oh, well, just like the last game, white has the bishop pair. Yes. But because the center structure is completely the same, it is very difficult to activate this bishop. You see, in Catalan positions, white uses the c-pawn to get the pawn off center and activate this bishop. But since you took on d5 and so did they, the only way you'll activate the bishop is by playing like this or by playing e3, bishop f1, bishop d3. So let's see if Vidit is able to do that. Otherwise, he's just going to develop normally. But if he cannot play he cannot play like rook e1, e4 or something like this, right? So he plays e3, queen back to b3, rook to c1. Not much is happening, right? And the question is, if white cannot activate this Catalan bishop, white will never have the advantage. The position is too solid, and the play might occur on the queen side. And you see, by the way, you see what black is doing. Black is clamping down on a square of his own, right? Rook c1, knight into c4, bishop to b4. But tough decision. Does black take? This trade, bishop b4, queen b4, tremendously helps white. Do you understand why? Queen's very active. Nope. Well, now there's one bishop remaining versus 0. Nope. b3. You enable the move b3 for white. And if white can kick out that knight, white can also expand on the queen side. And let me just show you what I mean. Let's say queen b6. Let's say b3 here, bishop f1. And in some faraway land, you move the knight to c3 and then play a4. Suddenly, that bishop on f1 is actually targeting something, whereas it wasn't doing anything from basically move 4 forward. So after bishop b4, black plays rook b8, and you say, Levy, well, what about this? Yes, but you see how b3 has not been enabled? So bishop b4, queen b4 is what he plays after he plays the move rook b8, because now he can win time on the queen. You see, he played rook b8, which enabled him to play a5. So now he can kick out white's queen, and he has enough time to prepare against b3. And b3 does occur, but black comes back, knight c5, rook c8, and it takes until move 31. It took 27 moves for the bishop on g2 to say, you know what? I'm done being stubborn. I don't like that diagonal very much. And 2 moves later, they agree to a draw. Yeah. So, why? Why did they agree to a draw? Well, black can do a bunch of stuff here. Black can play queen b8, can take the pawn. They agreed to a draw because clearly Vidit wasn't happy with his position. His bishop got off the diagonal, but it didn't really get any targets. And a move like queen c5 looks really good. It's like a really aggressive move. And look at how much vision the queen has. Yeah, black can just go here. And actually, if white is not careful, like white continues just doing nothing, like at some point, black is going to have a devastating kingside attack. Because, okay, you can hang out over here. I'm going to play queen f6 and you lose. So, Vidit pulled the plug on the game quickly and decisively. He tried the Catalan. Duda played very solidly. Vidit didn't choose an ultra-critical way to kind of break apart this position. Game 1 is a draw. And that takes us to our final game of the day, the one between Sam Shankland and Sergei Karyakin. Sam Shankland has had an unbelievable run in this tournament. And he's a really strong player. If you actually look up Sam Shankland after this video, he was a master, like, in his teenage years. Like, at 15, 16, I think he was a 22, 2300 rated player. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And he very slowly climbed up the ranks. Sam Shankland says it about himself, that he doesn't have talent, he just works extremely hard. I believe that's what he said about himself. If not, then I'm quoting what someone said about Sam. I'm not saying he has no talent. To be at this stage, you gotta have some talent, whatever you say about yourself. But he's an extremely hard worker. And he just knocked out Peter Svidler. He's in the quarterfinals, and he's playing Sergei Karyakin, known as the Minister of Defense, Ministry of Defense, and challenged world champion Magnus Carlsen in 2016. Now, c6, probably the critical line against g3, e5 English. Because if bishop g2, black plays knight f6 and d5. And basically, black says, look, man, you don't want the center, I'll take it. I'll take the center, go ahead. Against d5, the main line is d4. Oftentimes, black will just load up, connect 4 ASAP. And so he plays knight f3 to force this pawn forward. And this has been extremely trendy. This line with allowing black to bring the queen to the center, attack the knight, have this pressure here. Now here, normally white plays knight b3 or knight c2, but one move that I've also been experimenting with a little bit in Blitz is this move e3. It's not an imposing move, but essentially you just don't move the knight from the center. And then you play like knight c3, bishop g2. It just hurt my neck talking. Jeez, the life of a YouTuber is difficult. d3, bishop g2, and knight c3, said no one ever. Bishop c5. The queen is attacked, and all those moves take place. Well, first he plays this to break this apart. d3 is a pretty rare move order to do this in this specific way. And by the way, if anyone's confused why this knight is not being taken, because this attacks the queen, and after it takes a knight e4, d4, or even this move winning some time on the queen, white is just a lot better here. Oh, that's a bad move. Mouse slip. This position after something like rook c1 or bishop d4 is really good for white. White is a pawn down, but black hasn't developed anything. And this bishop pair really means something because, for example, knight f6, bishop c5, how are you ever castling in this position? I will go here and I will slap you in the face, okay? I'm not even gonna mate you. I will play queen d6, reach your just... Did anyone see that? You're right. So, like, let's not get it twisted. This is really dangerous. So black has to do this and just play the position calmly. Now, this position has been seen before by a couple of grandmasters up until actually this move, knight f3, queen swap, rook goes back, b3, trying to develop the bishop to b2, black plays bishop e6. Up until this point, we had been following Hráček versus Navarra, two of the strongest grandmasters from the Czech Republic in the Czech Championship 2019. And in that game, David Navarro played the move bishop to f5. In this game, we have bishop to e6. Now, I don't know how familiar... I'm sure Shankland was 100% familiar with that game because this is clearly his preparation. Karyakin might have been like, well, you know, I remember this game, but I don't remember the best move. I don't know why that Yeah, anyway, knight a6. Okay, what is going on? We have a queenless middle game with two pawns traded, all the minor pieces on the board. What is the degree of imbalance? Well, the imbalance is obviously in the structure of pawns. This is a 2-on-3, which normally is known as a queenside majority and better for the person that has more pawns, but not if the opposing side has some nagging open lines. And you can kind of play an a3, b4, little mini march, maybe b5 to pressure. Remember the Catalan bishop? Yeah, this bishop actually has a purpose in life. Okay, and it's harassing those pawns. Oh God, I should not put bishop and harassment in the same sentence. That is not, no, very bad. So rook d1, and you offer a trade of rooks. Why? Because if rook takes, you do not want to be the guy trading into the open file. Now white just has control of the open file, like we saw earlier, overlapping concepts, and now we begin knight e2, the rerouting process. And you know, Karyakin's position is interesting because everything seems to be standing normally, and yet nothing is stable, okay? Like everything seems to be normal, and yet you can't really do much. So he's trying to move his pieces around because he can't really move his pawns around. So he tries to trade, a3 kicks out the knight, and then he plays b4. Okay, so it seems like Karyakin should be happy here. He's traded off white's really active light-squared bishop. Must be a win. But in the process, he lost a little bit of time. These pawns kick the knight out. b5 is possible in the future. Maybe white will slowly expand with his structure. c5 is a very big decision. c5 allows knight f5 with tempo. The bishop has to go back to f8. And now Sam takes even more space. He doesn't trade any pawns. He takes even more space by winning time on the knight again. So knight to d5. The knight drops back to c4. Nicely positioned, counteracting anything on b6, reactivating the bishop, and now we're going to advance with the pawns. g6. That kicks the knight out. Knight b6. A trade of rooks is offered, and I just told you, you do not want to be the guy that takes and allows the control of the file unless you can make lasting changes in the position. This is why Sam did it, to freeze the structure. And play this move knight back to f3. So the rook can infiltrate on d3, but it can't do much more than that. I will now utilize the rook's position, and if you go all in, I go here and I go, so? You go, I have rook a1, so rook a3, so? I take your bro, check, then discover check with my bishop in the corner. Like, this is bad news. You don't want to do this. You can't actually justify the open file. Okay, rook back to a8. Bishop e5, danger levels. Knight back to e8, rook a1. Nice and solid. Okay. Playing chess. f6, bishop back. Remember this damage structure I gave you a long time ago? Well, now it's time to go collect. I'm on the way. How are you going to guard this pawn? Bishop d6. Okay, that move makes sense. You want to play bishop c7. All right, I'm going to wait a little bit. I'm going to play king f1. Bring in my king now. Bring in my king. h5. All right, you want to play h5? I'm not going to play h4. I'm not going to play h4. I'm breaking the rules. I'm going to play f4. I'm going to build this little barrier against your bishop, and then maybe e4 in the future. Oh, actually e4 right now. Oh, actually e5, because you offered me a pawn trade. Now, the way these positions often work, from Karyakin's perspective, is if you spend 35 moves defending, on move 36, you might do something stupid. Karyakin should not have played the move f5. This allowed a passed pawn, which is ultra protected in the position. He had to sit back for a second. Now, he probably couldn't find a move. And the truth is, it's not that easy to find a move here. For example, let's say you play g5. Well, here, white can still play this move e5. And for example, if pawn takes e5, then after bishop e5, you are under some severe pressure. White can also play the move f5 check, where your pawn is now a permanent target. It's not clear if that's good or bad. It's not clear. He did something, thinking probably that he just has a fortress, like it's impossible to break through. But it very much is possible. Knight comes back again, and Shankland is putting on a masterclass. I mean, he is a step ahead at all times. Knight to e6, and now look at this, a5. Utilizing this ugly structure to break through with b6. Now, admittedly, you can't take because knight d5 check. Admittedly, apparently, knight d5 first was even better. And then to get this endgame with king c5. This is just cleanly winning. You take on a5, king walks in and picks up everything. The king just does the job himself. He's like, stay back, you betas. I'm going in, all right? It's not always we see that, right? But Sam played b6 first, and then rook d1, and he allowed Karyakin to, you know, kind of drop his knight in there, trade it off, and now there's potential counterplay with the a-pawn. But the good thing is, this endgame, for example, bishop c7, bc7, rook c8, this is always winning for white. Now, it's going to take some effort, but this is a winning endgame for white. White is dominant on the activity standpoint. This king is it's literally locked, can't go anywhere. And if you do this, I can take with check, I can give you checks, I can win the pawn. You know, I've got my 4, right? I got my 4. So, rook c8 check, knight c7, and he does rook d7 check first, right? King to e6, and then this. And the funny thing is that after rook c7, bc7, king d7, king b5, king c7, king a5, king c6, king b4, this endgame, probably winning for white. I mean, it's either winning for white or it's a draw. And Sam calculated that. King b6 played. By the way, you can also play king d7. You can also play b5. Does not matter. You will use this pawn as a decoy. You will win the b pawn and shoulder the king away. So for example, here, 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 king d4. Where are you going? b5, h3. And you say, why did he play b5? Like, why didn't he just go king d7, king d5, king e7, king c5, king d7, king b6, king c8, e6. I told you, you're going to run out of moves. King b8, I go here. You got to go here. Only move. King d8. Now, I could go h4, by the way, but I'm just going to take king e7. Now, here, here, and here. This is why this is winning. Because you use the king as a barrier for the enemy king. And that king is going to run out of moves. Now, you don't follow. There's no point following. You could follow, but then at a certain point, if you sneak around back too quickly, there might be counterplay, right? So what you need to do, king e7, you got to go here. Dude, Levy, I don't understand. Here, here, here. I don't. Yeah, I know. h3. This one move. You got to give me the right away. And that is why Karyakin resigned in the game, because there was nothing that could be done to prevent the infiltration. ultimately, the game was decided by the move h3. And it was Sam Shanklin taking a 1-0 lead. I mean, super impressive game. Can we just say that was... And very instructive. Very, very instructive game. I mean, he just got like a very comfortable position from the opening, not searching for anything crazy, just a nice and comfortable middle game, and he just played a great game. He played just truly a fantastic game of chess. And tomorrow, we have two people in must-win situations. We will also have the women starting their first game of the semifinal. Quick 30-minute recap for y'all. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you very much as always. I'm going to be moving the room around because clearly the sunlight is a little bit too bright, or I will be getting blackout curtains. I will be working on the echo. I appreciate all your comments of support. You know, Levy, you moved this, you moved that, you got robbed, you know, blah, blah, blah. You still making the recaps. Look, I'll be honest. I always see the responses like some of the haters. It doesn't take that much work. They're not extreme. They're not wrong. To hit the record button, prepare some of the games for you all and record for 30, 35 minutes. It's, you know, people work 9 to 10 hour jobs. I am not naive. But what I will say is that I have done this consistently now for over a year. A video a day, 2 videos a day with very, very few breaks. And I love to do it. But y'all, you guys in the comments, all your jokes, memes, like it all builds the community bigger. And it motivates me to just work as hard as I possibly can. And if that's 1 video, 2 videos, or 3 videos a day sometimes, you know, I'm going to keep on rolling. I'll see you all tomorrow for game number 2 and game number 1 in the women's semis.